an American player, an American major, an American crowd, and the crowd was actively trying to make him lose. Police were called onto the course during a final round of a major championship, not at the gates, not at the perimeter, but mid-round while a man was trying to win one of the biggest titles in golf. And when it was all over, the champion stood at the microphone and said some of what he received was deserved. If you are a golf fan who wants full breakdowns every time something like this happens on tour, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and give this video a like. We cover every major story every day without the noise. Wyndham Clark entered the final round of the 2026 United States Open Championship at Shinnecock Hills with a 6-shot lead. He had set the 36-hole scoring record at the course across the first 2 rounds. By every conventional measure of major championship golf, he was in control. What followed over the next 4 hours was one of the most extraordinary final rounds in the history of the event. Not just because of the golf, but because of everything happening around it. To understand what happened on that Sunday, you need to go back 12 months. Because the crowd that showed up at Shinnecock Hills did not arrive without an opinion already formed. That opinion had been built across 3 separate incidents over the course of 1 year, with no formal tour consequence attached to any of them. The first incident came in May 2025 at the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow Club in Louisville, Kentucky. During the final round, Wyndham Clark threw his driver after a poor tee shot on the 16th hole. The club struck a sponsor sign and knocked it down just a few feet from a volunteer flag attendant. The moment was caught on camera. The clip moved widely across social media. The PGA Tour issued no public discipline. But the image of a club flying through the air near a volunteer did not disappear from the public consciousness. 1 month later, in June 2025, Clark missed the cut at the United States Open at Oakmont Country Club in Plum, Pennsylvania, by a single stroke. What happened next changed his public identity entirely. Clark entered the Oakmont locker room and destroyed 2 lockers that were part of a facility with 121 years of history. Photographs of the damage went viral. The club banned him. In a letter to the membership, Oakmont Club President John Lynch outlined the conditions for reinstatement. Reinstatement would be contingent upon Mr. Clark fulfilling a number of specific conditions, including full repayment for damages, a meaningful contribution to a charity of the board's choosing, and the successful completion of counseling and/or anger management sessions. Clark ultimately met every condition. He paid for the damages, made a charitable contribution, and completed anger management sessions online. But the public perception of him had already calcified. He had become the tour's most polarizing player in good standing. The third incident arrived just 1 week before Shinnecock. At the RBC Canadian Open in Hamilton, Ontario, Wyndham Clark played a round wearing a Team USA hockey jersey in Canada, the week after the United States had beaten Canada in the sport that defines Canadian national identity. The backlash was immediate and intense. It gave the Canada Hates You heckle that would greet him on the first hole at Shinnecock its direct. Specific origin exactly 7 days later. 3 incidents. 12 months, no formal tour consequence attached to any of them. What they produced instead was a fully constructed public identity, and Clark carried all 3 of them into Shinnecock Hills on Sunday. There was also a separate controversy from Saturday's 3rd round that fed directly into the gallery's energy the following day. On the 17th hole, Clark took a drop that triggered a wave of criticism across social media. Posts claimed the drop was illegal, that Clark had gained an unfair advantage, and that a penalty should have been applied. The USCA reviewed the situation before Sunday's round and delivered their ruling: no violation. The drop was entirely within the rules. Clark was cleared. That is the official record. But what the controversy did, even after its resolution, was send a portion of the gallery to Shinnecock on Sunday already convinced of something the governing body had formally determined was untrue. Clark stepped onto the first tee cleared by the Rules Authority. The crowd had reached a different conclusion. The heckling started before Clark struck a single ball. On the first hole, a fan called out, "Canada hates you." That was the opening line. it would not be the worst one delivered on the day. By the second hole, "Don't Choke, Wyndham" was audible on the NBC broadcast, not crowd noise, not ambient energy, but a directed taunt aimed at one player. By the fourth hole, a law enforcement officer was already moving through the gallery. Kevin Van Valkenburg, a senior journalist from the Fried Egg reporting from the course, documented the first confirmed removal on social media. A fan ejected at the fourth hole for shouting that same phrase as Clark prepared to hit his tee shot. Golf Digest confirmed a minimum of 2 ejections through eyewitness accounts on site. Reports from the back nine suggested the number went considerably higher. A PGA Tour source with knowledge of the events confirmed that 5 spectators in total were ejected from the tournament with 6 holes remaining. Throughout the front nine, the phrases recorded by broadcast audio and journalists present included "get in the bunker," "crash and burn," "nobody likes you," and "let's not break any lockers today, Wyndham." One fan sang the chorus of "Under Pressure" audibly on the NBC feed. The crowd cheered when Clark's shots missed their targets. They went silent when he executed well. Clark and his caddy Dave Pelikutis had discussed the crowd scenario before the round began. Clark told reporters afterward that he woke up that Sunday morning with, in his own words, a pit in his stomach. This was not atmosphere. This was organized hostility directed at one player, at his own national championship by his own country's crowd. Meanwhile, Wyndham Clark's playing partner was Scottie Scheffler, the world number 1 chasing the career Grand Slam, competing on his 30th birthday. The crowd had serenaded Scheffler with "Happy Birthday" on the first tee. Every birdie Scheffler made was received the way a home crowd receives a home favorite. Every bogey Clark made was met with cheers, pointed commentary, and noise at exactly the moments he needed quiet. Sam Burns, playing in the group ahead, was making birdies on the front nine at a remarkable rate. He fired a 3 under 67 on the day, the lowest score among any player in the final groups under the toughest conditions of the week. Burns birdied 4 of his first 8 holes, and every birdie he made was received by the Shinnecock gallery the way a home favorite would be received, because on that Sunday, Burns functionally was. By the turn, Clark's 6-shot lead had collapsed to 1. The golf course had been difficult, but the crowd had been relentless. The back nine is where the story of Wyndham Clark's character was written. On the 10th hole, with the lead down to 1, Clark pushed his driver off the tee, a bold club selection that nobody else in the field attempted on that hole on Sunday. From just 61 yards, he hit a flip wedge with extraordinary spin, landing it to 4 feet and making the birdie putt. The crowd was nearly silent. He had taken the momentum back and the gallery had no celebration to offer. On the 12th hole, his approach rolled off the green. The crowd cheered gleefully. On the 13th, he bogeyed, and the crowd responded with the energy of a team scoring a decisive goal. On the 15th, Burns missed a 4-footer for par, 3-putting to give Clark a 3-shot cushion. Then came the shot of the tournament. On the 16th hole, Clark found the fescue off the tee, one of the most punishing lies on the golf course. With a horrifying lie in thick rough, with the lead hanging by a thread and Burns still alive, Clark hit the approach perfectly onto the green and made the birdie putt. The gallery at the 16th went quiet. Not politely, but noticeably. That silence carried more weight than anything else that had happened all day. On the 17th, Clark missed his par putt, and the crowd briefly revived its energy. Burns still needed a miracle on 18. He didn't get one. His birdie attempt from 16 feet tracked toward the hole and slid just barely right. He dropped to his knees. Clark, meanwhile, reached the 18th, 2-putted for par, and it was done. 5 bogeys. 1 birdie at the moment it mattered most. 1 stroke over Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark 2026 United States Open champion. The crowd that had spent 4 hours trying to break him watched him lift the trophy. Burns was dignified in defeat in every sense of the word. He walked to the range after signing his card, his 2-year-old son Bear running up to him as he hit wedges and kept an eye on the championship on a screen nearby. When Clark's championship-clinching putt settled near the hole, Burns removed his glove and turned away from the screen. He knew it was over. When asked what his father Todd had said to him in that moment, Sam Burns paused before breaking down into tears. He just said he was really proud. One shot short of a maiden major. Dignified to the end. Clark spoke to reporters shortly after collecting the trophy. Standing on the 18th green, he said, "New York didn't really like me. I love you guys. But I get it. Some of it's self-deserved. I did some unfortunate things last year that I really regret, and I've been sorry multiple times and I'm still sorry, so hopefully I can win you guys over eventually." He was not deflecting. He was not performing. In the press conference that followed, he added, "Man, they definitely didn't want me to win." It's pretty rare in a United States Open Championship or a major to have fans kind of boo against your shots or cheer for bad shots. That was tough. He described the coping mechanism he and Pelikutis had developed during the round. "I was kind of making jokes about it with Dave, where if we heard someone cheer for me, I'd go, 'Oh, there's one person that likes me.'" And then he made the comparison that no American major champion should ever have to make. "I've played now a President's Cup and Ryder Cup on foreign soil, and it kind of had that atmosphere a little bit." Scottie Scheffler was asked directly about the crowd conduct at his own press conference. He did not soften it. "The crowd was tough today," he said. "New Yorkers, they are tough people. I think sometimes it can get a little too much when, balls are kind of going off grains and you start hearing cheers. That felt a bit much to me." He credited Clark directly. Being in the arena is not for everybody, and I think it shows a lot about Wyndham how he handled not only this golf course but the crowd today as well. Through all of it, the USCA said nothing publicly about the crowd conduct during the round. Police acted, broadcasters documented it, journalists on site reported it in real time, and the governing body of the event remained silent. This was the second time in under 9 months that a New York golf crowd had been cited by multiple broadcast organizations for conduct that crossed a documented line. The first being the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black in September 2025, just 60 miles from Shinnecock. The institutional question of what, if anything, the USCA does next remains completely open. Commentators and journalists covering the event raised the broader question openly, whether major championships can continue to be hosted in the New York market without meaningful governance intervention on crowd behavior. What makes Sunday at Shinnecock Hills so difficult to categorize is that the story does not resolve cleanly. Clark acknowledged the hostility had grounds. A portion of the crowd arrived operating on a ruling the USCA had already overturned. Scheffler's Grand Slam pursuit gave the day legitimate dramatic stakes that would have drawn crowd energy regardless. But the cheers for Burns and Sahith Theegala and Tom Kim throughout the day made it unmistakably clear this was specifically anti-Clark, not simply pro-Scheffler. As Sky Sports' Nick Doherty observed during coverage, things that used to fade from public memory now resurface indefinitely. The modern media ecosystem ensures that every incident, every clip, every photograph lives permanently and resurfaces at the worst possible moment. Clark carried Quail Hollow, Oakmont, and Hamilton into Shinnecock whether he wanted to or not. And yet, he won. With 5 bogeys, a lead that fell to 1, a gallery that required a police response, and a birdie from the fescue on the 16th hole that silenced Shinnecock Hills when it mattered most. Wyndham Clark is a 2-time United States Open champion. He enters the same company as Jon Rahm, Greg Norman, and Dustin Johnson in terms of major victories. His father, Randall, who surprised him with his presence on the 18th green on Father's Day, put it simply after an emotional embrace, "That's the toughest round of golf you've ever played." He was not wrong. If you want to follow what the USCA does next, how Scottie Scheffler's Grand Slam pursuit unfolds at the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale, and every major story in professional golf covered completely and without noise, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the like button. We will have it all.